Good morning, everyone. We are ready to start in about 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. We are ready to start in about 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Dear participants, hello and good morning to everyone. Welcome to the ERC Information Day organized by Praxi Network, a unit of the Foundation for Research and Technology, Hellas, Forth. The event is organized with the support of the General Secretariat for Research and Innovation and the European Research Council. My name is Maria Makridaki and I am the ERC National Contact Point in Greece. Together with my colleague Maria Samara, the fellow ERC Greek National Contact Point, we are going to moderate this online event. The main scope of this informative webinar is to provide valuable insight about the process of applying for a successful ERC grant and encourage Greek researchers who are based in Greece and abroad to apply for an ERC grant. During this info day, potential applicants will get first-hand information about the ERC funding schemes, the application and the evaluation process. The event includes presentations from experts and a roundtable session where ERC grantees will sort of ERC-funded projects, share their experiences, give advice to applicants, and reply to questions from participants. You will have the chance to actually interact with the ERC grantees and the ERC officers. You are strongly encouraged to submit your questions and comments in Slido during the event. The Slido code for our event is #519496. The event is recorded and live streamed via Praxis Network's YouTube channel. The presentations will be available at Praxis Network's website and the horizoneurope.gr website shortly after the end of this event. For the opening remarks, we're honored to have together with us today three exceptional speakers. The Deputy Minister of Development and Investments, Mr. Christos Dimas, is going to open this info day. Mr. Dimas, the floor is yours.
Hello, I would like to welcome and thank you all for being here today at this event. I would particularly like to thank the ERC Executive Agency, the Praxis Network, and the General Secretariat for Research and Innovation for organizing the event. I would also like to thank our national representatives and the ERC grantees for their participation in the event. Let me stress how important the European framework programs are for our national research and innovation ecosystem. Over the last decade, through competitive funding, the framework programs have strengthened our excellence and competitiveness and were the driving force for the creation of cross-border networks and strong ties between scientists and innovators. For the Greek ecosystem, the impact is impressive. The funds allocated to the Greek institutions from Horizon 2020 exceeded 1.5 billion euros. Let me also highlight that at national level, our plan is to further enhance funding for the whole spectrum of research, from curiosity-driven blue sky research to higher TRLs, innovation and entrepreneurship. We should note here a very important development for our country compared to the previous framework program, Horizon 2020. In Horizon Europe, Greece is now among the 15 widening countries and will be able to use the substantial funds, 3.3% of the Horizon Europe budget, of the pillar spreading excellence and widening participation. Our vision for Horizon Europe is twofold. We aim to a competitive presence to the widening actions and boost the excellence of our institutions, but also to further enhance the strong performance of our high achievers in bringing more ERC contracts to Greece. The ERC represents 17% of the overall Horizon Europe budget. In 2021, 1.9 billion euros will be made available to allow approximately 1,000 top researchers to pursue frontier research. Our ambition is to make the most of the opportunities offered by the ERC program and to encourage Greek researchers, especially the younger generation, to participate, to compete, and to pursue ERC grants. Various actions and initiatives are being implemented as part of the effort to harmonize the national and European research strategy and to create a single research and innovation area at both national and European level, including research centers, universities, technology clusters, companies investing in R&D, startups, and an innovation ecosystem as a whole. Through this new European research and innovation areas, we look forward to an effective and meaningful national contribution to frontier research, supporting the European Green Deal, and proposing sustainable solutions to climate, environmental, and social challenges. The contribution of the ERC to the new era is significant, and we look forward to the new calls in Horizon Europe. Basic research is an important element in a national strategy as it provides the necessary knowledge base for innovation, along with the research capacity to develop innovative ideas. Strengthening it is crucial to halt brain drain, but also to address brain waste and underemployment of young researchers who could turn their entrepreneurial opportunities by participating in startups, spin-offs, and innovative businesses. Scholarships for PhD, postdoc candidates, and teaching staff are already supported mainly through initiatives of the Hellenic Foundation for Research and Innovation. Also recently, the Hellenic Foundation for Research and Innovation, together with the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, launched an ERC Seal of Excellence scheme to fund Greek researchers who have achieved positive evaluation at the second stage of ERC evaluation, but were not funded due to limited budget. This initiative was launched in memory of Dr. Theodore Papazoglou, a prominent Greek scientist working at the ERC who passed away from COVID-19 in 2020. I am sure that today's event will inform and encourage our researchers to compete to the ERC calls. I would like to thank once again the organizers, the speakers, and all of you for your participation. Good luck with the events and good luck with your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dimas. It is true that the timing is great for researchers to take advantage of the various research funding schemes and the funding opportunities. So following Mr. Dimas, the General Secretary for Research and Innovation, Anastasia, will provide us with more information about the research opportunities and the funding schemes. Mr. Kyriazis.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure to address today's event for the European Research Council, ERC, Grants on Horizon Europe, Praxi Network, which is organized with the support of the General Secretariat for Research and Innovation, and the European Research Council, aiming at informing the Greek research community and boosting a discussion with ERC executives, national representatives, and national program contact points, as well as with members of the research community who have succeeded in the highly competitive ERC announcements. I also thank the ERC Executive Agency, the Praxi Network, and the GSRI for organizing the event, as well as our national representatives and the ERC grantees for their participation. The fundamental activity of the ERC is to provide attractive long-term funding to support excellent investigators and their research teams to pursue groundbreaking, high-gain, high-risk research. Research funded by the ERC is expected to lead to advances at the frontiers of knowledge and to set a clear and inspirational target for frontier research across Europe. Scientific excellence is the sole criterion on the basis of which ERC encourages proposals of a multi or interdisciplinary nature which cross the boundaries between different fields of research, pioneering proposals addressing new and emerging fields of research, or proposals introducing unconventional innovative approaches and scientific inventions. The ERC Frontier Research Grants aim to empower individual researchers and provide the best settings to foster their creativity. These values are at the core of the ERC philosophy. Innovation combined with scientific excellence, open science, and strengthening and facilitating the circulation of brains, ensuring favorable conditions for the pursuit of a research career, the balance of genders in applying for scholarships, etc. These values are also priorities, both in the context of the European research area and in our own strategy for research and innovation in General Secretariat Research and Innovation. General Secretariat Research and Innovation believes that accelerating growth is possible through the uptake and dissemination of innovative research results, technologies, services, and skills in enhanced research and innovation ecosystems and industrial ecosystems, including SMEs and startups. One of the main policy objectives of the new NSRF is the development of a more smart Europe through smart and innovative economic transformation. Our vision is to establish a new development model that is socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable, based on scientific excellence and research innovation, and its use to produce high value-added products and services that will improve the quality of life of citizens. We hope for the increase of the Greek participation in the ERC invitations and the expansion of the success of other research and academic bodies so as to further strengthen the Greek ecosystem of research and innovation and entrepreneurship, and to make our country's research potential even more competitive and strong through the successful claim of ERC grants. Thank you very much, and I hope you a good day and good results.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kyriazis. So now we are going to close this opening session, this short opening session, with a short talk by the Vice President of the European Research Council and Chairman of the Board of Directors at the Foundation for Research and Technology, Hellas, Professor Nektarios Tavanarakis. Mr. Tavanarakis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, dear Minister, dear Secretary General, and dear participants. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today to address you all. I'm not going to give a presentation or a talk. I think that both the Minister and the Secretary General provided an overview of the ERC, of the participation of the country, as well as the values of being an ERC grantee. So I'm not going to reiterate all that. I'm just going to say a few things about ERC itself and the meaning of the Greek participation. As you know, the ERC was created with a strong Greek flavor. One of the founding fathers of the ERC was Fotis Kafatos, who also served as the first president of the Scientific Council of the ERC. In addition to Fotis, of course, there is a strong Greek participation in the ERC executive agency. And of course, the Greek scientific community has been successful several times in obtaining ERC grants. It is actually very important, and I think this event aims at that direction, that we enable the scientific community of Greece to become more competitive at this level. Because it's not just about the money, which of course is substantial. The ERC is providing substantial funding of up to 3 million euros for 5 years maximum. So this is already a strong contribution both to science, but also to the general economy in Greece. Actually, more than about 100 million euro will come to Greece just from the ERC. The minister already said that our participation in Horizon 2020 maxed up at 1.5 billion euro, but still a percentage of that, about 100 million, is ERC money. And this is just an approximation, but still, this is substantial contribution to the research ecosystem of Greece. This means that we can compete at that level, and I think it is important to also realize that in addition to really obtaining funding, there is an element of, I think, excellence that is emphasized here. Obtaining an ERC grant actually demonstrates, shows that Greece can compete at the highest possible international level, because the ERC now is considered the golden standard for funding research throughout the globe, not just in Europe, but throughout. Okay, somebody unmuted. So it is actually very important that we increase participation, and we also send the message that Greece can compete at that high level. As you know, the ERC is now serving as a role model for funding agencies, national funding agencies throughout Europe. And even here in Greece, we have our own Hellenic Foundation for Research and Innovation, which was inspired and even modeled after the ERC. Similarly, in other countries throughout Europe, ERC is a model to be replicated and really inspires national policies. And I'm very happy to see that this is also happening here in Greece. I would really encourage everyone to not be intimidated to compete at that high level. And this event that is organized by the Praxi Network and the General Secretariat for Research and Innovation is really aiming exactly there to inform the community and to allow the community to compete by providing feedback information that is needed for applicants. As the minister already mentioned, our country is now part of the widening group of countries. That allows for certain benefits that I think should be taken into consideration, and we should benefit from those, such as, for example, the mentoring schemes that are being set up throughout Europe to allow candidates, applicants, prospective applicants, to improve their applications so that they have better chances at succeeding to obtain funding. And this is something that we are also setting up. I'm sure you are going to hear from the presentations of the officers at the Praxi Network and at the ERC Executive Agency that these initiatives are now being set up, and you will be able to participate in the near future. So I'm going to just close here. I'm going to wish everybody a successful effort towards obtaining ERC funding. As I said, this is very important for our country, not just in terms of money and mere support for our research efforts, but also because it really means that Greece can compete at that highest level. I would like to thank Praxi Network, which is our national contact point, the officers at the ERC Executive Agency, and the General Secretariat for Research and Innovation for supporting this event. My wish is for a very successful and informative and useful day. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tavernakis, for the very interesting points that you mentioned and stressing out the importance of excellence for ERC and the Greek competency. So we're now moving to Clelia Salpea, ERC Scientific Officer in the Life Sciences Unit of the ERC Executive Agency, who is going to present the various ERC funding schemes and inform us about Greek participation and provide us with more stats and facts about the Greek participation. Ms. Salpea is going to answer the questions that you will submit via Slido after the end of her presentation. So you're encouraged to submit your questions using Slido during her presentation. We're using the code #519496. Mrs. Salpea, we're ready to hear your talk.
Good morning, kalimera σε όλους. I'm happy to start as soon as I can share my screen. Can you please allow me to share my presentation? To the organizers, could you please allow me to share my presentation? Maybe I can start without the presentation.
You can now share your presentation, Ms. Salpea.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry for this technical issue. So I'll try to tell you as much as I can about the ERC and its funding opportunities in the time that we have. It's not working. So as Mr. Dima said, ERC represents the 17% of the Horizon Europe, and this is corresponds to 16 billion a year for the whole framework program, and on average this is 2-3 billion a year per year, our funding. ERC is not new, was set up by the EU in 2007, and it is based in Brussels. So ERC is led by scientists, our scientific council. These are 22 prominent scientists that come from different fields of science, We have a new president, Maria Leptin, who starts from the 1st of November, and we have 3 vice presidents, one for each domain: the social sciences and humanities, the physical sciences and engineering, and the life sciences, where Professor Tabernarakis is the vice president. The Scientific Council is responsible for the overall strategy of the ERC, for controlling the quality of our operations, and for ensuring a good communication with the research community. Now, as it was said at the introductory speeches, ERC offers long-term grants to individual researchers from all over the world. To do what? To conduct high-risk, high-gain pioneering projects in any field of research. So who can apply for ERC? Anyone from any country, regardless of nationality, age, and gender. Researchers that have excellent ideas can apply to ERC. We don't have any thematic priorities. There are no consortia in ERC, and we fund up to 100% of your grant. Why then one should apply for ERC grant? ERC offers independence, recognition, and visibility. Let me explain a bit more on that. A researcher can work on a topic of their own choice and with a team of their own choice. They have financial autonomy for 5 years. They can attract top team members and collaborators. Also, ERC grants are portable. You can choose a host institution even during your grant and change. And finally, ERC, after 14 years, is an established quality level, which will help you also to attract additional funding and gain international recognition and visibility. Now, apparently, ERC grants are addressed to researchers that are based in EU and associated countries, but let me give you more details about those who are not based currently in EU or in associated countries. So researchers from any other country that are interested in moving back to Europe are also eligible to apply for ERC grants, and also they can also ask for startup costs, so an additional 1 million euros that will help them to set up their lab once they're back in Europe. They can also keep their affiliation to the home institution that they are coming from, as they are required to spend 50% of their time in Europe. Some of their team members can also be based outside Europe, maybe in their previous lab. And the grantee can move once the grant starts. It doesn't need to be before. So let's see exactly what are the funding schemes that ERC offers. We have 3 traditional grant schemes who address researchers at their different career stages. So the first is the starting grants. These address researchers who are about to start their own team to become independent. The size of the grant is 1.5 million euros. The duration is up to 5 years. And the eligibility criteria is to have completed your PhD studies between 2 to 7 years before. In addition to the maximum main grant, the 1.5 million euros, the applicants can request an extra 1 million euro that will give them access either to large facilities or because of major equipment that it's necessary for their research and it's not available at their host institution, or to conduct specific field work. The next grant scheme that we have is the Consolidator Grants. The Consolidator Grants address these already independent researchers that want to consolidate their team and move on to the next stage of their career. The size of these grants are up to 2 million euros, the duration again 5 years, and the eligibility criterion is to have completed your PhD studies between 7 and 12 years. Again, these applicants can request an extra 1 million for the same reasons that I mentioned before. And the last scheme are the advanced grants, who address researchers at an advanced career stage. There are no eligibility specific criteria here. The applicants need to demonstrate an excellent scientific record of achievements for the last 10 years. The size of these grants are 2.5 million euros, the duration again 5 years, and they also can request this additional 1 million euros. ERC offers another 2 funding schemes apart from the traditional ones. synergy grants. It is a very interesting scheme. The synergy grants were established to address researchers who want to challenge the frontiers of research, and this cannot be done by one single team and one single researcher, and synergies are needed. So PIs that have different backgrounds and different expertise need to join forces in order to address a very ambitious project. The size of these grants are 10 million euros. These applicants can apply for an extra 4 million for the same reasons that I mentioned before: access to large facilities, major equipment, or field work. The duration is up to 6 years, and the researchers that jointly can apply for these synergy grants are 2 to 4 researchers. One of those can be based outside EU or an associated country. And the last scheme that we have is the proof of concept grants. These are not open to anyone, as all the other grants. These are addressed to our grantees only. So grantees that during the grant, they come up with an idea that has innovation potential, and then they want to explore possibly its commercialization, they can apply for these proof of concept grants, which are, the size is 150,000 euros and the duration is 18 months. And they can apply more than once during the lifetime of their grant. So let's see some more details about the evaluation process of ERC. As it was said at the introductory talks, in ERC we have a sole criterion, and this is excellence. The excellence is assessed by our panels at 2 levels, at the research project and at the principal investigator level. So in ERC, we're looking for projects of groundbreaking nature that can have a high impact and they have a sound scientific approach. But also at the same time, the principal investigators need to demonstrate intellectual capacity, creativity, independent thinking, and commitment. So let's see more details about how the evaluation is being conducted. So we have the first step where the extended synopsis is assessed and the CV of the applicant. This is sent to the panel members of each panel and they do their evaluation remotely. Then the panel members meet. Before they met in Brussels, now we conduct our meetings through web conferencing tools online, and we hope to go back to the old mode. So then all the panel members meet and discuss the proposals and decide on the scores. So they decide on which proposals can pass to step 2 and which proposals cannot pass to step 2. And for those, we have 2 different scores, B and C score. And there we have restriction of resubmission that apply. These proposals will receive feedback with the reviews of all panel members during the remote phase and the conclusion of the whole panel during the meeting. Now the proposals that pass to step 2, now the full proposal is reviewed by the panel members, and it is also sent to remote reviewers who are specialists in the topic and the field of the proposal. This happens at the remote phase, and then again, there is a panel meeting where all the reviews of the panel members and the remote reviewers are discussed. In addition, for starting and consolidator grants up to now, we also conducted interviews with the applicants. Now, in the new framework program, these interviews will be held also for the advanced grantees. So the panel take into consideration the interview and all the reviews of the remote phase, decide on A and B scores. A are the proposals who are worth to be funded, depending if the funds are available or not. So we can have maybe less A's than we can fund, or what it is often the case, we have more A proposals than what ERC can fund. So these are the unfunded A's. And then proposals that are scored with B and are not funded in this cycle. But here, these proposals do not have any restrictions in resubmission. These all, they receive feedback with the reviews of the panel members, the remote reviewers, and the comment from the panel meeting. The evaluation, as I described, it happens in different panels that correspond to the different scientific fields. So as I said, in ERC, we are divided in 3 domains: the social science, the physical science, and engineering, and the life sciences. And each domain has their own panels. Now, in the new framework program starting from the 2021 calls, this structure was changed, reviewed, and 2 new panels were created. One in the social sciences and humanities, SH7, human mobility, environment, and space, and one in the physical science and engineering, the materials engineering panel. In life sciences, we have the same number, but the contour of panels have changed. So the titles and the descriptors have changed in an effort to correspond better to the fields of life sciences that exist, and also to integrate the translational research into all panels, because the Scientific Council decided that this comes seamlessly in the work, the translation part of a research project. So they try to incorporate that in all the 9 panels of the life sciences. Next, I would like to clarify maybe some rumors that are not true about ERC. So ERC funds frontier research, including applied research, not only basic research. The budget in ERC is distributed among the scientific panels as a function of demand, so that all panels can have the same success rate. The panel descriptors are not thematic priorities. It's just an effort to represent the different fields that are there of science. The success rate concerning the starting and the consolidator grants is the same across the eligibility window. And why I'm saying that, because there are rumors that someone should wait until the end of the eligibility window to apply. And our statistics show that the success rate is actually flat across the number of years of this eligibility window. The publication record is important, but it's not the only aspect taken into consideration. It's not alone decisive in the selection decisions during the evaluation. And certainly the host institution is not an evaluation criterion. It is never taken into consideration at any stage of the evaluation. We have recently recorded some videos where we explain what is the best way to prepare your application or to prepare for an interview. And you can find very useful information in this video that you can find on our website that will help you to prepare for a successful application at the ERC. Now I'll share some statistics concerning Greece, the participation from Greece in ERC. Here you see the different countries grouped in the traditional EU 15 countries, the EU 13 that joined a bit later, and the associated countries. And here is the success rate of Greece. This is for the 2 framework programs, the FP7 and the Horizon 2020. Now, as of the 23rd of August, this scheme shows you the number of grants from each of the countries that take part in the ERC competitions. And Greece has 57 grants. The different colors show the different grant schemes that correspond to the number of 57. In the next slide, it's an interesting graph where it shows for each country what the data that we just shown in the previous slide. But here in different colors, you can see the nationals of this country abroad, the nationals in the country, and non-nationals in this country. So for Greece, the green part represents the 116 Greek nationals that have ERC grants and are based outside the country. And the red part are the Greek nationals that hold an ERC grant and are based in Greece. And I think there is a very small part of non-Greek nationals in Greece. Here in the slide, you see just the breakdown of these 57 ERC grants in the different host institutions in Greece, and you can see that the fourth has the majority of the grants. Last slide with the statistics is this following, which shows the total ERC evaluated proposals between 2007 and 2020 from Greece. And you can see that in 2007, there was a very high participation, and this participation gradually has decreased over the years. And I would like to close with showing you our call calendar and hoping that I have convinced you to apply for ERC. And we really hope to see more applications from Greece in the coming years to increase the number that we saw at the last slide. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Alpe, for this great presentation. My colleagues have informed me that we already have several questions and limited time, so we better start with the questions. So my colleagues are going to ask you the questions that they have already submitted in Slido. So start with the questions now.
Yes, Ms. Alpe, thank you from my side as well for this overview and great presentation, and good morning, everyone. We have a few questions we wish to discuss, but I would like to remind all participants that questions are welcome in Slido. Hashtag 519496. Please submit all your questions in Slido. First question is about the country of the host organization. Is the country of the host organization evaluated? And can you further analyze interdisciplinary issues as evaluation criteria in ERC proposals?
Yes, as I said, in no way the country or the host institution is evaluated in ERC. It's not an evaluation criteria, and it's not allowed to come into our evaluation. The evaluation is very carefully designed, and ERC is very sensitive to this issue. So we also increase awareness of our panel members before the evaluation about unconscious bias related to this. So I can guarantee that it is not coming into the evaluation at any stage. Now, regarding multidisciplinary proposals, of course, multidisciplinary proposals are more than welcome in ERC, and we try our best to give them a fair evaluation. And so the way to address multidisciplinary proposals is that the applicant chooses a panel. At the initial panel chair meeting, the chairs meet and see whether there is some proposals that cannot be given the best fitted evaluation in the panel that the applicant chose. In that case, they might change the panel. But in most cases, what happens is that the panel chairs will decide to request expertise from other panels in order to have the best evaluation of these interdisciplinary proposals. So there are reviews requested from other panels so that this multidisciplinarity is addressed. This happens at step 1. And at step 2, if this proposal passes to step 2, then the panel members nominate remote reviewers who are the true specialists in the field. And they try to nominate remote reviewers that correspond to the different aspects of the multidisciplinary proposals in order to have a more complete evaluation.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question is about applying to different grants at the same time. Is this possible?
One can apply in different schemes, you mean?
Yes, in different schemes, yes.
One can apply in different schemes, and the first eligible application, successful eligible application will be the one that will be valid. The first eligible successful application. Now, if the question is whether someone can have more than one grant at a time, no, this is not possible, of course, but grantees that currently hold a grant, 2 years before the grant ends, they can start applying to an ERC call, and then if they're successful to a new grant, that will start after the first finishes.
Okay, thank you. May a host organization be a private organization?
Sorry?
Are private institutions or firms allowed to be host organizations for the ERC grants?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any particular rules regarding budget distribution? For example, costs for clinical trials are eligible?
Budget distribution within for the proposals budget.
Yes, for the proposal budget.
No, the budget is subject to evaluation. So the panel will assess also the part of the budget, and yes, costs for clinical trials are included.
Mm-hmm.
Any cost, this is, I mean, whatever the PI needs for their research, as long as it is well substantiated and sound, then the panel will assess it. There is no, there are no restrictions in that respect.
And a last question, before going to the last question, I kindly remind everyone to submit questions in Slido, hashtag 519496. We can only accept questions submitted in Slido during the info day. Last question is related to the eligibility window as regards 2 to 7 years after PhD acquisition for the starting grant, and the rules related to career breaks. Will these rules change after COVID-19 outbreak? I mean, are there any changes in the forthcoming work programs?
The changes in the eligibility window in the forthcoming programs is that in 2023, the only change is that the 2 to 7 years for starting grants or 7 to 12 years for consolidator will be counted from the date of the PhD thesis defense and not of the PhD award, because the Scientific Council considers that this reflects better the real academic aids and not an administrative aid. But in relation to COVID-19, there are not currently any changes as far as the eligibility window is concerned. And now for the grantees, there is the possibility to request for extension in their grant due to difficulties or problems that they may have encountered due to COVID during the pandemic. Was there any aspect of the question that I didn't reply?
No, thank you. There are a few questions coming up as well. Is previous track record evaluated?
Definitely, the CV is subject to evaluation, and the track record of the PIs, all grant schemes is part of the evaluation. Maybe I didn't understand well the question. I can't hear you.
Yes, okay. If previous track record is considered as an evaluation criteria, yes, publications, I guess, yes. That
of course is part of the, it's not only, but of course it is part of the evaluation. And there are, I mean, in starting grants, the grantees are expected to have at least one publication as main author or without their PhD supervisor. For consolidators, several publications as main author or without their PhD supervisor are expected. And of course, for advanced grantees,
there is yes, there is also a comment related to funding more proposals in technology and life sciences and less in humanities. How can we strengthen the humanities proposal?
I think I have a slide that shows that in Greece, I can maybe share it with you. It shows the success rate in the different domains, and it is the same. Maybe it will be interesting to show. Can I share screen? So you can see it here. So for Greece, for example, here, the different color of circles, the different colors. So the three domains, life sciences, physical science and engineering with green, social science and humanities with blue. And in Greece, the success rate does not differ much between the three domains. In other countries, there are discrepancies, but this is not, we cannot draw a conclusion across all countries for a specific domain.
Okay, and a last question is about the forthcoming calls for each type of grant. I think you already provided a timeline for the next expected calls.
Yes, and I can send you, you can find it on our website, and I can even send you the call calendar for 2021 and 2022.
And all presentations will be available in the organizer's website, so that the participants can have a look and find answers to their questions.
Of course.
So thank you very much, Ms. Alpea. Maria Makridaki, we can move to the next roundtable session.
Yep. Thank you both. Thank you, Ms. Alpea, for this very, very interesting presentation and the clarifications you provided to the questions that we have received. Unfortunately, we're running out of time and we'll have to quickly move to the roundtable session with the 4 ERC experts forming the National Program Committee members who will also share their experience with ERC. We can start with Mrs. Vassou Kindi from the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. Mrs. Kindi.
Yes, hello. I would like first to thank the organizers for inviting me to address this meeting. And I would like to talk as a former member of a social sciences and humanities panel in the advanced grants in 3 calls. In my capacity as a reviewer, I have seen and discussed more than 300 proposals. Only 2 came from Greece. And they didn't do very well. In the meantime, I have seen several proposals on topics that are very relevant to Greece and of great interest to Greece, such as ancient Greek philosophy or Orthodox theology. But these proposals were not coming from Greece, but from countries such as Israel or Georgia or Germany or Sweden, Azerbaijan, but not from Greece. So I would like to encourage people from the humanities and the social sciences to apply to the ERC. Now, from my experience, I would say that the proposal, the excellence of the proposal weighs more, in a sense, in the evaluation in comparison to the PI's CV or publication record. A well-structured, clearly written a proposal with an original idea can carry a PI with a not so brilliant CV. So don't be discouraged if you have a good but not a dazzling CV. A third point that I would like to make is the following. Always bear in mind that the first reviewers who will see your application are generalists. That is, they may not be experts in the particular field that your proposal belongs. So try to be clear and address and persuade such an audience. Finally, I would like to say that my trust in the whole process was reinforced by my participation in this panel. I was impressed by how thoroughly, conscientiously, very seriously and fairly every proposal is discussed and judged. It is given all the time it needs to be discussed and judged fairly. And lastly, I would suggest that research centers in Greece and universities provide support to researchers so that they can prepare administrative, mostly support, so that they can prepare a well-written and structured proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kindi. That was really interesting. So we now move to Mr. Vissarion Papadopoulos, ERC expert and from the National Technical University of Athens. Mr. Papadopoulos.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
But my video seems to be disabled.
We'll try to fix that. Just please.
In any case, it doesn't really matter. I better start speaking, and meanwhile, you may fix it if you can. Okay?
Yes, please. Yes, yes.
All right. Following what Professor Kindi has said and the presentation of Ms. Salpea, it's clear to me that we are underperforming in ERC. Just okay. Now it's all fixed. Thank you. And we need to improve. I am speaking because I have participated in a successful ERC proposal in the past in our laboratory in the National Technical University of Athens. And ever since, I hear many times from colleagues of mine that they will not apply because they are afraid that the success rate is very small, so the proposal won't be successful, so it's not worth trying. In addition, many young researchers feel that the affiliation is not enough. Greece as a country is not competitive to support a proposal. These are all myths that must be broken. Nothing of those things exists. As Ms. Kindi said, the proposal is evaluated more than the person. So if the proposal is good, everything will be okay. So I would really like to encourage young, especially investigators, to apply in order to increase the participation of Greece and the success rate. Regarding the success rate, however, I must say that you must keep in mind the flavor of ERC call. It's not a classical R&D call. It has a flavor of high risk, high gain. So the idea has to be groundbreaking. And for the proposal to be competitive, please work as a team, do collaborative work. Internal reviews are required, and the final thing that I want to point out is that a mentoring procedure and support from the institutions must be established in order to help the applicants to improve their effort. So that's all for my part.
Thank you very much, Mr. Papadopoulos. And now we move to Mrs. Alkis Bonanos from the National Observatory of Athens.
Hello from me. The video again doesn't work, but I'll start talking as you fix that. First of all, it's an honor to be a national representative here for the ERC. So I'm speaking as one of the national representatives. My experience related to the ERC has to do, well, I'm a grantee, actually currently a grantee, but I applied 3 times. The first 2 were unsuccessful. In 2011 and 2012, I applied for a starting grant. These attempts were not successful, probably because I had not really consulted with any grantee. So this is one point I want to make, that it's very important to talk to people that have gotten it and get as much advice as you can, because there are several tips and tricks, let's say tricks that you can, that you have to be aware of in order to pitch the proposal correctly and write a proposal that's successful. In 2017, I applied again for a Consolidator grant, and this time it was successful. Mainly, what really helped is the valuable advice I got from a colleague here at the National Observatory of Athens, who also recently got an ERC. Some points are that, keep in mind, this is a different type of grant that we're used to preparing. It's not the same scope as a national grant. The ERC funds larger projects, more ambitious projects. So this is something we're not used to thinking about when we're applying for grants. Another point is that the panel, as Professor Kidis said, is broad. So, for example, in my field, in astrophysics, I would apply for PE9, the universe sciences, and I have to convince string theorists, cosmologists, optical astronomers, theoretical astronomers, even planetary scientists or geologists that my project is worth funding versus someone else's project. So this is something that one has to keep in mind, that the panels are very broad and the way the proposal is pitched is very different than what we're used to. So basically, I encourage you to apply. There are experiences from current grantees, there are stories available on the internet. We had a similar event like this a couple of years ago. There are slides available with advice. I'm happy to talk to anyone who wants any further advice. And always it's a good experience to go through this exercise of preparing such a big proposal. And in the worst case, you try applying again. And if not, you could try pitching it to a national agency. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bonanos. And now we move to Mrs. Anastasia Stathopoulou from the General Secretariat of Research and Innovation.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank our national delegates for sharing their experience with us and for their continued support for the General Secretariat for Research and Innovation. I'd also like to emphasize how important ERC is for us at the GSRI. It has set an example for our national initiatives and especially for the establishment of the Hellenic Foundation for Research and Innovation. I'd also like to encourage in my turn our researchers to compete to the ERC calls and insist if they don't succeed the first time, they can compete again. As the Deputy Minister and the Secretary General said, supporting basic research is a priority of our policy, and that is why relevant actions have been included in the GSRI's actions within the Recovery and Resilience Fund. I'm looking forward to hear the experiences of the grantees and the guidance from Professor Tabernarakis. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for sharing your experiences and the tips to future applicants. We have already heard many times the importance of support services during the preparation and submission of proposals. The role of the national contact points for the European Research Funding schemes can be crucial in supporting applicants. So my colleague Christiana Siabeku, Head of Unit National Contact Points at Praxi Network, is going to present the role of the national contact points and the services that are offered to the applicants.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all. I would like to thank the speakers and, of course, the participants for joining us today. During my short presentation, I will give you an overview of the services offered to the applicants by Praxi Network as a national contact point in Horizon Europe. But first of all, I would like to introduce you Praxi Network, which was established in 1991 as an initiative of the Foundation for Research and Technology, ELAS, and the Federation of Greek Enterprises and Industries, with the aim to link research with industry. Praxi Network turned out to be one of the most important organizations supporting innovation and technology transfer at European level. Praxi Network has more than 30 years of experience and know-how and employs more than 30 highly skilled and experienced people. Praxi Network serves as a reference point for the research community in technology transfer and exploitation of research results, providing high added value services to companies, institutions, organizations, both regionally and nationally. Praxi Network has been acting as a national contact point since 1998 from the 5th framework program and then the 6th and 7th framework program for research and innovation, the previous framework program, Horizon 2020, and of course, currently for Horizon Europe. Since 2008, Praxi Network is a member of the Enterprise Europe Network, the world's largest support network for small and medium-sized enterprises with international ambitions, and coordinates the Greek node of the Enterprise Europe Network, which is the Enterprise Europe Network ELAS. Finally, In 2019, the Foundation for Research and Technology Alliance was awarded an UNESCO Chair on Futures Research, and Praxis Network leads these activities. Moreover, the chair provides operational and technical support to the foresight team of the Greek government. As I mentioned before, Praxis Network's mission is to increase the competitiveness of small and medium-sized enterprises and research and technology organizations by linking research and with industry, by promoting innovation and entrepreneurship, plus international cooperation. Praxis Network has branches all over Greece in 5 cities: Athens, Thessaloniki, Heraklion, Volos, and Patras. Based on its long-standing experience, Praxis Network has established a wide network of partners worldwide. Already, is a member of the largest worldwide network for supporting SMEs, the Enterprise Europe Network, participates or coordinates European networks of the national contact points for the EU framework programs on research and innovation, and has a worldwide network of partners focusing on technological and research partnerships in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the United States of America. Praxis Network was recently nominated by the General Secretariat for Research and Innovation as a national contact point for the new framework program, Horizon Europe. Praxis Network acts as a national contact point under specific thematic areas, the majority of the thematic areas for Horizon Europe. So these are under Pillar 1, the European Research Council, of course, the Marie-Skłodowska-Curie actions, research infrastructures. Under Pillar 2, Cluster 2, Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society. Cluster 3, Civil Security for Society. Space under Cluster 4, Cluster 5, Climate, Energy and Mobility, and Cluster 6, Food, Bioeconomy, Natural Resources, Agriculture and the Environment. Under Pillar 3, for the European Innovation Council and the European Innovation Ecosystems, plus the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Praxis Network is a national contact point for widening participation and spreading excellence and reforming and enhancing the European R&D system. Since Greece is now a widening country, there are many opportunities. There are more opportunities within this framework program for the Greek research community. And finally, under Euratom, Fusion and Fission. Which are the services now that Praxis Network offers to the interested applicants? We offer information, advisory support, and networking. But let's see one by one, how can Praxis Network support you as a national contact point? Praxis Network can provide you with general information on the funding opportunities under the EU framework programs and currently under Horizon Europe. We organize info days like today and seminars, and we help you identify the appropriate partners in order to create consortia and submit proposals within Horizon Europe, within the calls of Horizon Europe. Additionally, we disseminate information on planned info days, seminars, and workshops that are organized not only in Greece, but also abroad. And we publish information booklets and statistics. This information are all included, published on the new website that Praxis Network developed in the beginning of the year, www.horizoneurope.gr. I will provide you with the link afterwards. Additionally, Praxis Network provides advisory support and helps you identify the appropriate call that is of interest to you, support on the rules and procedures for participation, the evaluation criteria and horizontal issues such as innovation management, commercialization, intellectual property rights, and legal and financial issues. And of course, we can help you with the pre-proposal check before submitting your proposals, giving you tips and advice and guidance on how to improve your proposals. Finally, we can link you with the appropriate members of the European Commission responsible for the respective thematic area that is of interest to you. We can help you, as I said before, link you with appropriate partners abroad in order to create the best consortia. We can link you, liaise you with other national contact points and partners from abroad in order to promote your profiles. We can signpost you to the right experts for specialized issues outside our scope or expertise. And of course, we organize brokerage events, B2B events, in order to help you to meet with potential partners where you can collaborate and submit your proposals. Here are some indicative projects. Some of them are already over, or some of them are still running. There are projects of the national contact points. These are the NCP networks where Praxis Network participates. And now, of course, we are preparing our participation in the upcoming networks for the national contact points within Horizon Europe. As I mentioned before, this is the Greek website for Horizon Europe, which was developed by Praxis Network in the beginning of the year, and our aim was to fit all the information, to include all the information for Horizon Europe in Greek, for the Greek applicants. And get all the information, and of course come to us when needed for guidance and support. These are some useful links for Horizon Europe, the website of the European Commission, the Greek website Horizon Europe, and the Funding and Reduced Opportunities portal, where you can find all the information on the work programs, plus the calls and the ways of submitting the proposal. Thank you very much from my side, and please note that my colleagues and I are always at your disposal. Please need any kind of guidance and support in order to help you submit proposals within Horizon Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christiana. So we are now moving, let's say, to the main gist of today's event, to the roundtable session of the ERC grantees, who are going to shortly present their funded projects and provide tips and tricks for successful ERC applications and answer your questions. Please don't forget to submit your questions for the ERC grantees in Slido using the code #519496. So now I'm giving the lead to my colleague Maria Samara, who's going to moderate the roundtable session. Maria?
Thank you, Maria. Yes, I wish to welcome all ERC grantees. During this session, we're going to hear from our grantees some details about their project and discuss about different aspects of their experience during the preparation and management of the ERC grant. As Maria mentioned, you are all welcome to submit your questions via Slido. #519496 as we get started with our discussion with each grantee by stating the name of the grantee in each question that you submit. So now we can turn to our first ERC grantee, Juliana Boitseva. I'm sorry, Ms. Eleni Hadji. Ms. Eleni Hadji is the first ERC grantee. I'm sorry, Ms. Hadji.
Hello, should I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Great, so it is a pleasure to be here today after this invitation to present some information through my experience as an ERC starting grant holder. I actually applied. I'm the chair of structural mechanics and monitoring at ETH Zurich in Switzerland. So I have applied with a host institution that is not in Greece, but hopefully I can offer some insights about the overall procedure of applying for an ERC starting grant. I will start with some information on my specific grant, which is titled Windmill, and pertains to the smart monitoring, inspection, and life cycle assessment of wind turbines. Just to give a bit of background information on the scope of this project, here we're trying to shift the paradigm of assessment of these particular or let's say peculiar in a sense structures that form a hybrid between a structure and a machine. We're trying to shift the assessment from current visual or periodic inspection to an automated means of assessment that relies on the paradigm of use of sensors that are of low cost and can be permanently deployed, and where we try to enhance the information from these sensors by bringing in physics in the loop. So our project is organized in two main tracks. A first track, which we call forward engineering, and relies on physics-based modeling for understanding the dynamics of these systems, then the extraction of data through the use of sensors, as I mentioned before. And we try to couple this information to derive quantities that are decisive about the life expectancy and the performance of these systems. One such critical quantity is fatigue, which relates to the deterioration experienced by these systems, and which also limits their useful life to a rather restricted nominal limit, 25 years of age. We're trying to produce diagnostics and prognostics for these systems that can operate both in the short and long term, with the scope of supporting decisions about their optimal management, operation, and maintenance. And the objectives of the project are organized across two axes. The first one is, of course, the scientific axis. The reason why this project is fundamental in nature is because the methods and tools for coupling physics to data are essentially fundamental research objectives. They require the development of new methodologies deriving from time series analysis, from probabilistic and machine learning tools. And secondly, the quantification of what we call the value of information is also something that is a research topic of high fundamental value. At the same time, we have to have an impact. And so the project has a clear impact in the aspect of sustainability. It's trying to extend the nominal life, as I mentioned, of these systems, which is rather restricted at this point, and to promote the shift to adoption, a more wide or broader adoption of wind energy. Perhaps more to the structure of the grant, which could be of interest for an institution that is hosted in Switzerland. The composition of the team for the given budget implies that at any point of the grant, the members of the team are essentially 2 PhD students and 1 full postdoc with participation of a further senior researcher. And this was a very good size for us. It allowed me to populate the 2 tracks, the forward and inverse track of the grant, with a team that stayed throughout the duration, the 5-year duration essentially of the grant. These 2 PhD students received their doctorates just now upon completion of the grant, with also a distinction from our university. In terms of outputs, of course, for us, number 1 output has to do with the scientific output. The fact that we did, at the end of the day, provide an end-to-end methodology, as I mentioned in the beginning, initiating from data collection, which is the more mundane task, but which also required dedication, to the extraction of performance indicators that were boosted through the use of modeling of physics and mechanics principles, and allowed us to reach the level of decision support at the level not only of individual components of wind turbines, but in fact the level of the fleet, the wind farm, and also offer some best practice principles for adoption of these technologies at that level. The scientific output, we were lucky to have actually quite rich and acknowledged contribution in the domain, now serving as experts in various panels that have to do with monitoring in the domain of wind energy. But it also spawned a number of follow-up projects and research attempts that were inspired from this initiating effort. It was mentioned earlier that proof of concept grants can also be part of the outcomes, or could be part of this effort that is initiated within ERC. And indeed, we had the proof of concept that we are now delivering in a packaged solution that is to serve for initiation of a spin-off company. I think with this, I will end on the presentation of the grant. And I believe that there are some questions. I don't know if you pose the questions or I should retrieve them.
Yes, one of the questions coming up is what was your main motivation for applying for the ERC grant, and can you state the biggest challenges you encountered when preparing your application and during the project implementation phase?
Yeah, so clearly a big motivation for any researcher applying for an ERC, for a starting grant, is the meaning that this kind of a grant has for one's career, and indeed this was the case also for me. But what I considered the challenge when I was deciding whether I should apply or not was, first of all, the choice on when was the appropriate time to apply. So how many years since PhD? For this particular grant, of course, for all grants, it's essential to have a very good proposal, but the career profile of the applicant also plays a role. One has to be able to prove that in this short amount of time, they are also independent researchers. They are capable of leading a team that comes with the grant, and therefore are, in this sense, have a proven academic independence. They have a number of grants that possibly attest to this independence. And so for me, the choice of when to apply was quite critical. I went for the fourth, slightly beyond the fourth year since my PhD. And I did this so that it would allow me to apply a second and third time, knowing that oftentimes success comes in the second or third application. I was actually lucky enough to receive it on my first attempt, but I believe that for anyone who tries to schedule an application for a starting grant, they have to also think about this timeline. So that was a bit of a challenge. And the further challenge was the aspect of me applying as an engineer. And as you know, this is in fact applied research. There is this somehow prejudice that applied research is not fitting for a fundamental research grant as the ERC starting grant. This is not the case. One has to make sure to frame their research so that they can highlight what is the fundamental value. And of course, in engineering, there are aspects that are truly of fundamental nature. And these are the ones you have to also highlight along with the actual impact of the grant.
Thank you. The second question is, what is the expected impact of the grant on your research career and possible personal benefits and advantages further to this grant?
Yeah, so this, as I mentioned at the beginning, was even, in fact, a motivating reason for me to apply for the grant, and it turned out to be true. I initiated as an assistant professor, in my case, in this institution at ETH Zurich as a non-tenure track professor. The acquisition of the grant was decisive in me actually obtaining tenure. So it was a really cornerstone, a true asset for me that was conducive to academic evolution. It was not obviously the only factor, but it is a great testimony to one's research and what the potential is for this research. And it further allowed me actually to build a team on a topic where I was just initiating at. So actually my field of research is monitoring, but I do this, I was largely doing this from a more civil engineering perspective. Now I have been able to enter a domain that has tremendous potential for us for application of our technologies and methods. And I have become an expert now participating in panels and committees that relate to the topic of wind energy, essentially creating a new field, the field of monitoring for these kinds of systems. And so for this, I'm very thankful. And I also think that it's a great example of what this kind of a grant can initiate for someone's career, even for one's research track.
Okay, and last question, which is linked to a question submitted in Slido, is what is your advice for future applicants for the starting grant, for the grant? How much time did it take you to prepare the proposal, or did you receive any help during the proposal preparation stage?
This is a good point, and I think a lot of very useful advice was also offered as part of this session so far. As I mentioned before, I was applying without really having much of experience, also because of the fact that was at that point very close to initiation of my academic career, I think it was essential that I sought for advice. I sought for colleagues who could offer templates and examples of their successful grants, even if these were not actually in my domain. This was extremely helpful for me because it helped me understand the structuring of the different sections of the grant and what I could include that would make a difference, or what I should rather leave out, which was of secondary nature. What additionally helped was my connection to the national contact point here in Switzerland, and I would advise everyone to do the same in Greece, because the bulk of information that one receives from these support centers is tremendous. An additional trait that I was able to exploit once my grant application passed the first round was that I was given a chance to offer a mock-up interview. And this mock-up interview was was actually essential for me to structure my presentation during the interview round. I received input that tremendously, essentially revised what I initially had in mind presenting. This balance between the applied and the fundamental, it became clear when I was given the chance to present in this mock-up interview in a panel that was more diverse than, my perspective, which was a clearly more engineering type of perspective. And one should be aware of the fact that in these panels, including the engineering panel, you will not just find people or representatives of your own discipline. And this is why it is important to structure these presentations, but even maybe the writing of the grant in a way that it is understandable to a broader audience, and that makes the methods, but also the impact clear and communicates it in a way that is that is clear and does not leave questions or doubts about the success or even feasibility of the grant. So preparation, in my opinion, is everything. At the same time, not being discouraged by initial attempts is also quite important, but you should keep in mind that also the initial submission should not be, should be carefully thought of so that it results in a rating that allows you to reapply. And it's not just a hasty attempt that was put together in order to make a deadline. This is also quite important. You should invest time in preparation. In my case, it was a full year or even a bit more that I was conceiving and even writing and planning the grant and the composition of the team. So this is what I would advise.
Ms. Hadzi, thank you very much for your positive messages to the events attendance. We can now pass to our next speaker, our next ERC starting grantee, Mr. Kostakis.
Hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
Just a minute, because I'm sharing my screen. Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you very much for the invitation. As Eleni did, I'm going to start with a bird's eye view of my proposal before we can engage into a discussion about hints and other ideas regarding to a successful or unsuccessful ERC bid. Amid a systemic crisis, it is imperative to create evidence-informed awareness of new sustainable futures. So I start with a prefigurative example from the prosthetics industry. Amputees are often disappointed at the high cost of buying and maintaining their prosthetic devices. This is a design of a prosthetic hand that has been created by a geographically distributed community of scientists, designers, and enthusiasts. All knowledge, software, and designs related to the manufacturing of such a hand are shared. Excuse me? Did we have any intervention? No?
No, you can go ahead. Thank you.
So all knowledge, software, and designs related to the manufacturing of such a hand are shared around the globe as a digital commons. Therefore, anyone with internet connection and with access to a low-cost 3D printer can customize and build such a hand. So locally, minimizing the transportation of of the materials and customizing and adjusting the device to the local needs. So my ERC project has been exploring an emerging mode of production, like this case that I refer to, that builds on the convergence of the digital commons of design, knowledge, and software with local manufacturing technologies. Such technologies can be found in places such as maker spaces or fab labs. So this emerging mode of production can be understood as DGML, design global, manufacture local. Put simply, DGML follows the logic that what is light, knowledge, becomes global, and what is heavy, machinery, is local and shared. So ecosystem of such projects and case studies that our ERC proposal has been studying. For example, the WikiHouse community that produces open source designs for sustainable housing, the LibreSpace community that built the first open source satellite in orbit, or the L'Atelier Paysan cooperative, which produces open source agricultural machinery for an organic farmer. In all, Cosmolocalism, our ERC project, tries to advance our understanding of how to create a sustainable economy based on locally productive communities that are digitally interconnected. Yeah, so this was a bird's eye view of my project, and I would be happy to discuss further things, questions with regards to the ERC, but also to those questions maybe coming from the social scientists that would like to pursue such a bid.
Thank you, Mr. Kostakis. I would also like to address a question about your related to your motivation for applying to the ERC grant. What led you apply to this grant? Given that there is a strong competition, was this strong competition a deciding factor, especially for the social science and humanities?
Yeah, my reply to this question is not different to what Eleni said before. That is to say, first, the flexibility and the autonomy, the freedom that the researcher gets with such a grant is excellent, I would say, almost immense, if you take into consideration the other funding schemes that exist. And this allows us to do some really meaningful work. So to do things that we are really passionate about and not things that others tell us to do. I mean, those committees that pre-design, for instance, the context and the aim and the scope of a funding scheme. Here we are free to do whatever we want. And second, the ERC, a successful ERC project is, if I'm allowed to say, a ticket to permanent tenured positions within academia. So the prestige that one may get can help you a lot if you want to, become a permanent researcher. So before I was a senior researcher, now I'm a professor, a permanent professor, and this has, it goes without saying how much it has helped me in pursuing my work and interests.
Thank you. So may we also kindly ask, did you have any previous collaboration with the host institution and other team members or researchers, and how this collaboration affected your decision to apply for the grant?
Yeah, so yes, I had a pre-established collaboration with the hosting institution. In my case, it is Tallinn University of Technology in Estonia. I had already established a collaboration with other team members, and this is very important because it demonstrates that you have already a team and you can coordinate the manifold work that takes place in such interdisciplinary projects. I had already a pre-established collaboration with the research networks, included including institutions from overseas. And yeah, I believe that this actually minimize the risks, although the ERC, they say we want to fund high risk, high gain proposals. But in my case, this actually demonstrated that, there was something interesting taking place, and more funding and more freedom would only scale the impact of what we do, what we have already been doing. It would scale it up.
Okay, thank you very much. So can you describe main steps you followed when preparing your application and how and provide advice to future applicants that are in the process of preparing their application at the moment?
Yeah, so the write-up of the application was, in my case, a collaborative effort, meaning that I was already leading a research group, and we have been working on this ERC proposal long before this proposal was submitted. It is important to highlight that this proposal was submitted twice. The first, it did miserably, if I'm allowed to say. The second time, we submit exactly the same proposal. I only changed some things in my CV because in the meantime, my CV had been enriched, a publication record, for instance. And first thing that I did was that I changed the panel. So I aimed at a much more interdisciplinary panel, which hopefully could understand the interdisciplinary nature of my and our proposal. And second, I got an affiliation with Harvard University. So these were the two things that changed. And the second time, my proposal was one of the most highly ranked proposals, I was told later. Yeah, so it is important, as Eleni also highlighted, that this is that the write-up of the proposal is a genuine effort of the researcher to realize some goals. You should not chase after a deadline, but you should really care about what you do. And if you can demonstrate, especially if you are pursuing a starting grant project, if you can demonstrate that there are some successes in the field, this could help you more to convince the panel that you can really deliver. And I have another thing that I would like to highlight. Let me see if I can share just my screen, because I have two slides, and as they say, pictures convey more things than words. Oh, sorry. So I would like to highlight how careful I think we should be with interdisciplinarity and novelty. So sometimes our idea may be too novel, and we should always take into consideration that we should use a language that would communicate our ideas to a diverse panel. And the second thing is, again, the elephant in the room, that is, again, interdisciplinarity. We should also take into consideration what this second figure wants to elaborate, because we are human beings, and we have our own predispositions, etc. And I think it is important to work also on that end. That is to say, how to communicate the things that we are very passionate about to an audience that may be not that interested, or may not be aware of the special language that our subfield may use. Thank you. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Mr. Kostakis, for your presentation and very useful tips as regards interdisciplinarity, which is a very important aspect for future applicants and for the ERC. So if there are no I think there are no other questions. I kindly remind all participants they can submit their questions in Slido. Hashtag 519496. Please state the name of the grantee you want to address the question and submit your question in Slido. So now we can pass to our next speaker, Juliana Vujteva, Principal Investigator, yes, the ERC Consolidator Grant. Hello, good morning.
Hello, thank you to invite me for the invitation. I want to share my screen. Share. It's okay? I can't hear you.
Can you select full screen?
Yes.
Great.
It's okay?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the invitation to present my project and to share my experience on ERC grant application and implementation. So, thousands of Russian icons and other religious art objects can be found actually everywhere in churches, monasteries, and museums on the Balkans and Eastern Mediterranean. These piety objects come to the region through official and unofficial donations, pilgrimage, and itinerant trade for a long period of time. They are worshipped and used not only in churches and monasteries, but they also enter the sphere of private piety, and from the end of the 19th century, they enter museum collections. So Trans investigates the aesthetic, ideological, political, and social factors which shape the transfer and the reception of Russian religious art objects and their influence on the Russian culture on the host societies. So, Trans aims to map the phenomenon in its long history, B, follow the paths of the transfer, and identify and classify the mediums that make it possible. C, analyze the dynamics and the various factors behind their transfer. D, study the objects according to their iconographic and artistic particularities. E, inquire into the multiple factors which shape the reception of Russian religious art in Southeastern Europe. And finally, investigates the impact of the transfer on host societies and their visual culture. Our methodology is the following. The team consists of 5 country-based research groups in Greece, Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania, and Russia. We have selected 6 regions for data collection so as to produce a large and representative sample of the preserved objects, made the locations and itineraries of these objects, and focus on case studies which will illuminate important qualitative elements and variations of the process of transfer and reception. Trans adopts a cultural transfer approach, which is established and well known, but it has never been applied to the study of Russian icons in the region. We will apply quantitative and qualitative analysis at micro and macro historical level and study the phenomenon as a whole and its regional variations through a truly interdisciplinary lens, which includes art history, philology and paleography, social anthropology, art conservation, and nosology. All this will materialize in an important set of various intellectual products. Trans studies for the whole a large and neglected body of art objects, Russian icons and other religious artifacts in the Balkans and related written evidence, and treat them also as historical sources for the relations between Russia and the region of Southeastern Europe. It has a large geographical scope, transcending national frames of reference, applies a modern conception of art history as a composite humanitarian discipline, and shift attention from a top-down approach, which studies only high-quality objects, to the study of thousands of modest quality artifacts and their use and reception by a large number of people. And finally, consolidate an international and interdisciplinary network of leading scholars and educate new generation of scholars. So the team will organize 7 international conferences and workshops, will produce 8 books and at least 42 articles, will support training activities, and will organize the web presence of the project and artifacts and photo exhibitions. So this is my short description.
Thank you very much. We would like to address same question to you as well. What was the main motivation for applying for the ERC Consolidator Grant?
I applied twice for ERC Consolidator Grant. The first time it was in 2014, and the second in 2018. The first time I applied when I was working as postdoc researcher at IAMS Ford, and at that stage it was rather for me a trial in order to see if this new field of study I have described, and I had already initiated in Greek with Greek funding, can produce interest in a European level. And I was positively surprised when I learned that I has passed in to the phase B of the ERC selection process. But I haven't received the support. But at this stage, it was already for me a big success, a fact which encouraged me to apply again a couple of years later. In the following years, I enhanced my knowledge and expertise on this subject. And in spite of that, I failed twice to receive Greek funding. Surprisingly, the second time with almost the same project, which I eventually decided to submit in 2018 for the ERC Consolidator Grant, this time successfully. So in other words, I had not other option to continue my research, and I was very happy to obtain the grant.
Another question is, how has this grant impacted your career and personal development, and where do you believe that this grant will lead you after its completion?
This grant, in general, the study of Russian religious art in Greece and in the Balkans was for me a new fruitful start in my career in Greece after moving from Bulgaria. And the ERC grant consolidated my research and my position in the academic community, both in Greece and internationally. And I will have the permanent position as researcher in Greek institution according to the law. So the ERC grant opened new paths of research for me and an international cooperation. And I'm pretty sure that after this project will be followed with new research initiatives. So it has a pivotal role in my career.
Okay, thank you very much. There are 2 other questions coming up in Slido. How easy is it to work with non-EU researchers in terms of administrative procedures? And the next question is, are 5 years enough to research, produce and publish results in the project?
No. The first question, yes, it's a very good question and a very timely question. It's very difficult to cooperate with the non-EU institutions, because we have almost every day we have to to find solutions of different administrative and economic solutions for our administration and for the progress of our grant. I'm very, in fact, Ford provide a very good support for these situations, and I'm very thankful for the law advisor and for all the team of Ford for the support in these cases. It's very different. In fact, the more difficult part of our cooperation and the biggest differences is we found is with Russia, because they have absolutely different frame of cooperation, of administration, and of a financial absolutely a different financial philosophy of the grant appropriation. The 5 years it's not enough in this period of pandemic. It's it's absolutely short time, and fortunately ERC provide an extensions for due to the pandemic, and we receive now the 6 months of extension for our deliverables. But I hope, I'm sure that we will be able to accomplish our due.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we can pass on to to our final speaker and grantee, Nektarios Christoulakis. Mr. Christoulakis.
Okay, share also my screen. You see my screen? No?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for this invitation. It's also a pleasure for me to be here and happy to share my Erbisphere project ideas and my experience in ERC. So our project is Erbisphere, as focusing on coupling dynamic cities and climate. And our objectives concern the understanding, forecasting, and projecting feedbacks between climate change and drivers of urban transformation, and capturing the complexity of urban dynamics toward changing the way we represent cities in climate models and urban planning methods of linking climate risks to urban dynamics. We explore how urbanization, human behavior, and technology changes in cities impact climate change. This is the green part in the figure. That means feedback and impact from the fine scale to the global scale. That means emissions of aerosols and greenhouse gases, etc. And also explore how impacts of climate change influence urban populations, their vulnerability, and their adaptive capacity. This is the blue part on the figure on the left, and related to the impact of the climate system to cities as extreme events, and is related mainly to adaptation. And we work on the local scale, which is a neighborhood scale related to urban climate that modifies climate and exposure. We are a synergy project, so we have 4 PIs. So our project team consists, beyond me, of course, of Professor Jörn Birkman from University of Stuttgart, Professor Andreas Christen from University of Freiburg, and Professor Sugrimont from the University of Reading, and of course all the postdocs and PhD candidates, and we have a huge team of collaborators. Concerning our methodology, first of all, we have a conceptual framework development. Be sure that we speak all the same language because we have different disciplines in this project. And we built a unified modeling system and a smart urban observing system that includes Earth observation systems from wearable sensors to ground-based technologies up to satellite Earth observation satellites. And use this equipment to study the interrelationships between urban form and function, to build urban dynamic archetypes, and then to proceed scenario modeling. The main outcomes are related to the deeper understanding of socioeconomic and dynamics and human response to climate, extreme events, and urban transformation. A dynamic and unified modeling system by coupling between different modeling types. We have, for example, urban atmospheric and climate models at the mesoscale and global scale. You see that right, which is two-way coupled, dynamically coupled with urban surface models, that is urban canopy models and indoor models. And then we have two-way coupling, dynamic coupling with human exposure and vulnerability models that are agent-based models or human biometeorology models or vulnerability and adaptive capacity models. So we use this to build the urban dynamic archetypes that link different neighborhoods concerning vulnerability, form, and function. And this UDAs, the urban dynamic archetypes, should be responsive to changes in urban development, socioeconomic change, and climate change. And finally, we deliver evaluated scenarios of vulnerability and adaptive capacity and emergency risks from neighborhoods to global cities. And here you can see the cities who are planning to work with in the global scale. You can find more information about our project in the website earbisphere.eu. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christoulakis. So I will repeat myself and address the same question to you as well. What was the reason you decided to apply for the ERC grant?
I cannot hear. Could you please repeat the question? I think that's.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
What was the reason you decided to apply for the ERC grant, and what were the key issues when setting up the group of your team, the group of principal investigators and your team?
Okay, so for more than 15 years, my research has been focusing on the boundaries between Earth observation, urban climate, and urban planning, trying to quantify the relationships between urban form and function. And in this framework, I've been coordinating the project Urban Flashes, funded by Horizon 2020, and it was concluded in 2018, and developed new methods on estimating urban energy balance from space. However, beyond its important findings, Urban Flashes opened new research questions related to estimation of energy, water, and carbon metabolism in urban setting, where the increased spatiotemporal variability makes the assessment of emissions challenging, especially in the frame of climate change. Because what is not fully understood yet is the feedback between cities and climate change. So it became clear that the transformative and multidisciplinary research was needed towards a deeper understanding of the socioeconomic dynamics and human responses to climate and extreme events and urban transformation. So it should be noted that such research was timely at period because the 6th assessment report from the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, was expected. And actually, the physical science basis report was recently released in August 2021. Furthermore, it was also known that in the cycle of the 7th assessment report of the IPCC, which is expected to start 2023, it will be included a special report related on cities and climate change, which is just the topic of our proposal. So for these reasons, the idea of an ERC synergy project generated to focus on capturing the complexity of urban dynamics toward changing the way we present cities in climate models, contributing also in this way to the IPCC work and transforming urban planning methods linking climate risks to urban dynamics. Related the cases about setting the group of PIs, I think the main key issues for us for the Synergy project was the strong complementarity between the PIs, because it was necessary to deliver on the ambitious project objectives. For example, we integrate expertise in modeling urban systems in urban climate observations at scale from neighborhoods to globe to cities, and use ground-based and satellite approaches, and also include vulnerability assessment and resilience indicators, particularly focusing on the influence of social, economic, and demographic and governance factors. So the multidimensional interdisciplinary nature of the urban and climate change and the multi-scale challenges that Herbisphere attempts to address could only be tackled through a specific combined knowledge and skills brought together by all 4 PIs. It should be noted again that the PIs separately or in collaboration had tried to work on specific parts of this issue in the past. However, it is the first time that such a multidisciplinary research team of this type and scale is planned.
Thank you very much. One last question. Before going to this last question, I can remind everyone that if you wish to discuss with all participants, you're welcome to submit your questions in Slido, hashtag 519496. So last question is, what is your advice towards future applicants, and specifically your advice about the interview process in case someone passes to the second phase?
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a very interesting question, especially for this information day. And okay, for the Synergy project, I have some practical issues. For example, first of all, we need a careful selection of the OPIs, depending on the multidisciplinary nature of each specific research, therefore on complementarities among the PIs and on excellence of each PI in his or her domain. Second, we should spend time together to build a strong and coherent team and develop a proposal idea through many iterative cycles. It is essential to have a shared understanding among the different PIs. Third, submit a proposal if and only if it is mature enough. For example, we have started developing Herbisphere project in proposal in 2018. However, just before the deadline of 2018 ERC call, we discovered that it was not mature enough to be presented as an excellent proposal. So we decided to further develop our ideas, describing our methods of synergy in a more robust way, and submit. Finally, we submitted the proposal to the ERC call of 2019. Fourth, present an excellent proposal explaining why transformative research is needed and focusing on its high risk and high gain nature, but for synergy projects to focus also on multidisciplinarity that makes the development of a synergy proposal a necessity. And finally, for the interview, we should need to pay special attention on the interview. It is very, very important and has the potential to change the ranking, resulting in proposal evaluation procedure. And this needs close collaboration among the PIs, mainly focusing on 3 issues. The first is trying to review and elaborate questions from past interviews, which could maybe available from the national contact points, for example. Second, to organize a mock-up interview. I think that was also mentioned from our colleagues before. It is very, very important for synergy projects. And for example, the German national contact point had organized a mock-up interview for the Herbisphere PIs for us in Bonn. We got there, we got support not only from ERC experts, but also by psychologists and performance, because the interview is also a performance. And last but not least, rehearsal for several times, and also just before the interview. That's all for me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christoulakis. May I address the same question regarding the advice for the interview to other ERC grantees as well? Because this was a question submitted and addressed to all grantees. What is their advice for the interview in case an applicant passes to the second phase?
Maybe I could say something here. I already mentioned the importance of having this mock-up interview for preparation, but actually when you are there, when you're at the stage of this 5-minute presentation plus 20 minutes of questions, I would like to advise applicants to exploit the questions session by allowing the panel to ask as many questions as possible, because this is also something they would like to do. So you have to be on point. You have to keep your replies short and exactly to the point without dragging for too long. So do not give long-winded replies, because this is also seen as a possibly not being certain about the type of reply you're offering.
So be short and precise. And any other advice from Ms. Boicheva or Mr. Kostakis? No, there is a question for you, Ms. Hadzi. How much of this of technological achievement has to be previously published, has to be published before the submission of the proposal?
Yeah,
I guess this is related to the track record.
I assume that, so I would view this question as twofold, at least in my case. One would be the track record, and already, it was mentioned that maybe it made a difference when you do a resubmission and your track record is updated. And I think that's particularly true for the ERC starting grant, because as I mentioned, you have to prove independence, but also the fact that you're capable of leading and producing the research that you're promising. On the other hand, in my case, and maybe this is a bit of why this question was asked, I was entering a new field in a sense. I was using my knowledge in a domain that we had not yet thoroughly explored. So there, this consideration was something that I took into account. And in fact, before applying, I made sure to have some initiating research, even in the sense of some early stage deployments, applications of our technology on wind turbines, in my case, just to be able to prove that we know what the problem is about and that we have started actively, investigating in a way that reveals that we understand the research questions and we do have tangible ideas on, how to proceed next. So you should prove some association to the topic, particularly when it's something relatively new with respect to your previous track record.
Thank you, Professor Hadzi. I think we can also address the question about the advice for the interview for passing to the second phase to Ms. Boicheva. Maybe you can share your experience especially for the ERC Consolidator grant.
Sorry, it's okay now. No, it's okay. I think for the ERC Consolidator grant, it's very important to when you prepare your proposal to stress this this new stage in your career and your research history, research biography, because the Consolidator grant are addressed for researchers in their mid-career stage, and it's very important to writing your proposal to stress this quality, the new stage, and the character of consolidation of new field, of new subjects, and the consolidation of a team. So this is the more important for this kind of projects, I think.
And there is another question related to the administrative burden that is related to the management of the grants. This is addressed to all grantees. How is it possible to balance research, publications, and administrative management of the grants? What is your advice about managing your time for these issues?
Okay, I have a comment on this. I think for especially for synergy project is much more difficult because we have to coordinate the 4 PIs, but in our project we are all the PIs experience at advanced level, so we have the experience of the past Horizon 2020 projects, so we're experienced how to make this balance. I think that for generally in ERC, these administrative issues are all these issues are much more similar than the typical Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 project, as are simply enough. We are focusing on research mainly, and we can concentrate our efforts on the research because there are not specific deliverables in the sense of Horizon 2020 and specific deadlines for this.
Any other statement on this issue? On managing the administrative aspects and research and publication issues during the...
May I? I want to share my experience because I am working with a very big research team. I have 5 national research teams in Greece, Serbia, Russia, and Bulgaria and Romania. And our team is almost 30 persons. So my solution is two persons that working on the administration and the coordination of the project and the research management. And I think this is the only possibility to have to continue our proper research activities. And ERC grants offer this possibility to support this kind of personnel. And I think it's very important. And from these people, this is the young people, and they obtain a new experience in communication with the European in the European level, and contact with this very different and in our case with a very rich team.
Thank you very much. So a last question is related to strong points that made your proposal successful, and why? What do you think that made your proposal successful and not the other proposals? And what were the weak points in the previous unsuccessful submissions, if any? Maybe Ms. Hadzi can.
Yes, I mean, I could start. I don't think there is a recipe exactly for success other than trying to indeed follow this blue skies spirit. So high risk, high gain, but at the same time be aware that the feasibility of the project is assessed. So it seems contradictory, but you have to prove that you have a clear idea of how to establish what you're promising at the same time that it is a radical innovation. ERC, at least the starting grants, which is my experience, are of course unique. They are an idea that stems largely from the PI and has to be by nature unique. This means that you cannot directly compare proposals with one another. And in fact, most panels are broad enough to have submissions that span across different domains. Even in engineering, in the engineering panel, you would have applications within all sorts of streams, even bioengineering before the separation of the panels and so forth. So I don't think there is the recipe for success other than making clear in your statement what is it that is radical and new here and why it is fundamental research for the ERC starting grant. In my case, I didn't have to resubmit, but I think I would wait to hear from the colleagues on what they think might have been revisions that made a change. That's also interesting to hear.
Thank you very much. If I can have a statement from all grantees about this question, strong points that made your proposal successful and weak points in previous unsuccessful submissions, if any. Mr. Kostakis? Or Mr. Chrysoulakis? I can see Mr. Chrysoulakis.
Okay, I fully agree with Eleni with the strong points and weak points. Just to add for synergy grants, about weak points, we discover, as I discussed before, that our proposal was not mature because we discovered have some interference. Can you hear me now? Okay. We discovered that we have some weak points on documenting our synergy, the necessity of the synergy grant. That was the quick point. That was decided to not to submit the proposal in the 2018 and submit it 1 year later after a second round of iterations and developing more our ideas. But the strong points, of course, I agree with before, and was related to, of course, to very well preparation, several iterative cycles. We have been in contact with the other PIs on a weekly basis for more than 1.5 years. And of course, we focus the high risk, high gain nature, but also in our case, we should document very well the necessity for a synergy, the complementarities between the PIs and all these issues. And last but not least is, as we discussed before, the interview. The interview was very, very important. I think in our case was the critical point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christopourakis. Mr. Kostakis?
Yeah, so I fully subscribe to what the other speakers have already said. In my case, I think it was quite helpful the fact that many eyeballs worked on this proposal, meaning that we had I had my proposal reviewed by many people because, as I said before, the proposal was very interdisciplinary. So I invited people from a wide array of disciplines to read my proposal. So this is one of the strong points, I think. And with regards to the weak points, maybe the methods. So my proposal included qualitative methods and not that many quantitative methods. And because, social sciences is not a neutral science, it is very political in the end, we had to engage into such discussions with even with the panel members. Some of the reviewers, might have had a doubt about, how generalizable the results of my proposal could be, etc. So, but this is very usual in the social sciences, and that's why we are not called hard sciences.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Ms. Boitsefa Juliana.
So about so my second application was I had the experience from with the references from the first unsuccessful applying, and the changes what I made in my proposal was first I make a balance between the different activities of the team. So we included more training activities, not only academic, more social activities, more openings to the general public and to the general audience. And I make emphasis on the social impact of our project and the social and political impact of our project. So the timely character, the necessity of a project, research project, studying some phenomenon related to the contemporary history. So to make the relation between history and contemporary political situation. So I think it was one of the strong points. And the 4 years between the two applications, so I had a better CV, more strong CV, and I had a better idea about the feasibility of the project. So my idea how to implement this, to implement this idea was more major.
Okay, thank you all for this fruitful discussion, for sharing your advice and experience. Before going to the closing remarks. There are a few questions addressed to Ms. Salpea. First question is about the starting date of an ERC project. Can this be extended? I mean, is there a time limit, maximum 12 months for the starting date of the project?
Yes, it's actually 6 months after the applicant, the grantee, receives the letter announcing that they got the grant, so 6 months. Of course, if there is a very special situation, or this can be considered, then always exceptions may apply, but the rule is that it should start within 6 months.
Okay, thank you. Next question is about the funding track record. Is this an evaluation criteria? Well,
it depends on the career stage, on the grant scheme. So the panel evaluates the CV of the applicant, and they're looking at its career stage to see certain things. So for advanced grants, certainly the possibility to acquire funding, it is assessed with everything else of the achievement, along with all the other achievements of the PI. For consolidator grants as well, I would say, because it is indicative of the potential of the applicant to conduct independently research, but not alone. It's not evaluation criteria. It's just factors that in the CV of the applicant that the panel will take into consideration, but not for the starting grant, because the mentality there is to find to fund researchers that are about to start or are just started their own independent research and team. Now, the panels, of course, are asked to take into consideration the special circumstances of each applicant, and that the funding opportunities are not the same across Europe and in all countries. So as they are also asked to take into consideration unconventional career paths or career breaks, same is with the funding, because it cannot be the same, the opportunities of funding across Europe.
Thank you. And the last question is related to the research topic of the proposal. Well, I would rephrase that. I mean, the question is, how can a good research topic better sell? I would rephrase the question to what do you consider as an excellent research proposal?
So there are no topics or priorities in ERC, and there is no topic that is favored. What the panels are looking for very innovative ideas, groundbreaking ideas, but it can be of any topic. The applicant needs to convince the panel that with their work, they might take this topic, the specific field, a big step, not just a small step, a leap forward. So it doesn't matter in which topic or in which field. And the panel members are very experienced researchers, scientists. So trying to use marketing or sell, something else than what the proposal is really about, it wouldn't be advisable. There are no topics that are favored in ERC.
And there is also an upcoming question about open access rules in ERC grants and your advice as regards open access journals.
Well, there is an obligation, a contractual obligation, to provide open access to all publications that are resulting from the ERC grant. So we cannot advise what journal to use. No, this is up to the applicant entirely, but they need to ensure that either they have a golden open access or green open access, provide through a repository open access to their article within. It differs in the different fields, but it is within 6 months or 12 months in other fields after the publication.
Thank you very much, Ms. Salpea. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to thank everyone for all the advice and all the important information communicated during this info day. I would like now to pass on to Maria Makridaki.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you all. It was really interesting to listen to your stories and experiences, and I believe that you have inspired many people today to start drafting their proposals. So we're close to the end of this event, and last but surely not least, Mr. Nektarios Stavrenarakis, Vice President of the European Research Council, is going to summarize what we have heard today and provide us with some final remarks. Before giving the floor to Mr. Stavrenarakis, I just want to add a certain point that was raised several times through the questions we received today during the event. There is a certain concern about the country of the host organization, if this has a negative effect in the evaluation process. Many questions refer to the low performance of Greece and whether this is an indicator that Greek applicants should seek for host organizations to other countries than Greece in order to increase their chances for a successful proposal. Ms. has already answered this question, but would also like to hear your view regarding this specific issue. Mr. Stavrenarakis, we're looking forward to your final speaking points. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks everyone for your participation. I would also like to especially thank the ERC grantees who were here today to provide insight and share their experience. I think this has been a very useful session. And of course, there are going to be more to follow since we are planning to have a very active national contact point to support the Greek community of researchers and contribute as much as we can to increase the success rate of applicants out of Greece. Now, I've heard very carefully, I followed all the presentations, and I've also read carefully the questions that were asked in Slido. Let me just begin by saying a few general things, and then I'll go into some more detailed information. So I hope it became clear that what really the ERC is all about. It's about high risk, high gain research. It's not about incremental research or simply follow-up research of something that has already been done and is there. This is something that I believe should have come across this session today. So high risk, high gain, breakthrough research, this is what the ERC is looking for. And the sole criterion, and let me emphasize this, the sole criterion for the evaluation is excellence. There is no relevance to locality, gender, or any other parameter or factor that might have to do with the applicant. So it doesn't matter whether or not the application comes out of Greece, a Greek university, research institution. Actually, the research institution is not evaluated during the evaluation process. So this should be clear. It's not correct to say that applying from an institution in Greece, you actually decrease your chances of success. This is not true. It's not the way things are evaluated at the level of the panels of the ERC. As was said repeatedly, the sole criterion is excellence. Gender, of course, is also not a criterion, and we are ensuring that at the ERC that this is not a factor. Actually, the ERC itself has set up a working group for gender balance to monitor the issues that pertain to gender equality. And as you know, it's now a prerequisite for all Horizon Europe projects that there is a gender equality plan for all research institutions that apply for funding under the Horizon Europe umbrella, including, of course, the ERC. So these are not criteria that are evaluated. These are not relevant. These are not parameters relevant to the evaluation of proposals. The country is not evaluated, the institution is not evaluated, gender is not also influencing the evaluation of proposals. This should be clear that what the panel is looking for is excellent proposals out of applicants that are really showing the capacity to carry out the research. And here I would like to also point out that it was already mentioned actually that the CV is of course important, but it's not the major determining factor. And of course, publications, high profile publications are important, but they are not the determining factor. And in fact, actually, with regard to publications and how the ERC evaluates candidates, the mentality of the ERC is to look for the substance, not the prestige of the journal or the H index, etc. As you may know already, the ERC has signed DORA. There is already this has already been implemented actually from next year, starting next year for the work program 2022. The ERC evaluation will be compliant to DORA. But already the ERC is actually doing that because evaluation panels are advised to look into the substance of the contributions of the applicant, not the prestige of the journal or the H index or the number of citations. Again, this should not be something that would discourage candidates. If you feel that you have a mature idea, an excellent proposal, high risk, high gain, breakthrough idea, then you should really go for it. And as was said, of course, we are talking about mature proposals. We are not talking about incremental research or hastily prepared proposals. I think it came across from all the grantees today that they paid a lot of attention towards preparing a successful proposal. And they had to go through a painstaking process of revision, rewriting, getting feedback, etc. So if your proposal, if your idea has reached a level of maturity that you believe is now ready to be submitted, then I don't think that there should be any hesitation. And as I said, there are no other factors except scientific excellence. This is something that should always be kept in mind. Now, some tips I think came also across. For example, the amount of time that somebody takes to prepare is very important. How you collect information during the preparation phase of the proposal. You should collect as much information as possible. Talk to successful applicants, to ERC grantees, get feedback. Also utilize the national contact point. They can provide a lot of information that's useful for the preparation. Remember that Greece is a widening country now, so we are going to also become participants in the mentoring scheme of the ERC. And there you will have the opportunity to actually interact directly with successful applicants from other countries even. You will be able to get advice. And then for those of you that will go on to the second phase to the evaluation and will be given an opportunity to present your project in front of the panel, there I think the most important advice and tip that I can give you is practice. Practice in front of other colleagues, scientists, get feedback about your presentation. Use the expertise, the experience of other successful applicants so that you can get the best possible result out of the interview. And remember that now we also have interviews at the advanced level of grants. So not just Consolidator and starting grants that traditionally had the interviews. Now, starting from Horizon, with Horizon Europe, there are also interviews for advanced grants in the second stage of evaluation. And there, as was said, it is really very important that you get your facts right, that you get your presentation perfected through a process of practicing, revision, getting feedback, advice from colleagues, critique even from colleagues, and utilize all the tools that are available out there. And there are a lot of tools. So there are online resources that you can utilize. You can do investigative work, get information about how proposals are evaluated. Also read through the work program very, very carefully. Direct your project to the right panel. These are all things that you need to consider. And it's all a matter of the amount of preparation that you are putting into this. It's not something that you can write hastily in a couple of months. It's not going to do it. It's not going to cut it. You need to prepare. You need for your ideas to mature before you go there and apply. And this is also something that should be taken into consideration because, as you know, there is a certain level of self-evaluation that needs to be incorporated into this procedure before you go there and apply. Because there are penalties, as you know, in case you are not successful, you don't do well during the first stage of evaluation. There are penalties. You are not allowed to apply for the next round. And this, of course, delays you. So there are decisions that need to be made. And there is a certain level of self-evaluation that is done by the applicant, by the applicants themselves. And here, this is something that you should consider carefully, whether or not your project is mature enough, is perfected enough, so that you can go ahead. Now, of course, if you don't succeed the first time, this is not a reason to get discouraged. I should say that reapplicant success rates are higher than first-time applicants. And I think this is the reason for this is that the second time an applicant has matured, has experience, has gone through the process, and they have prepared a better proposal. So the chances are higher, and this is something that we've seen through the statistical analysis that is done with all the applications and the successful proposals. Now, let's go to the thorny issue, of course, of the success rate of that's pertinent to Greece, and whether or not the country could do better with regard to obtaining ERC funding. Now, a couple of things that should be made clear from the very beginning. Can scientists from Greece be competitive at this level? The answer to this question is a resounding yes, of course. And scientists from Greece, from Greek institutions, Greek universities, have actually been successful in obtaining ERC grants for all granting schemes, starting grants, consolidator grants, advanced grants. Some numbers were given. Let me just see if I have some more precise numbers. Okay. I already said in the introductory remarks that about 100 million euro came to Greece through the efforts of the ERC grantees. I see now that up until July there were 75 grants allocated to researchers in Greece. Of course, this is a low number, and this should be clear. I mean, the success rate for Greece is much lower. compared to other European countries, even widening countries. So we are not doing as well as we should, I think. Now, what are the reasons for this? This is a long discussion, why the long discussion, why the success rate is so low. But one thing should be clear. The success rate has nothing to do with a proposal coming out of Greece. It's not that the panels evaluate, let's say, the origin of the proposal, and this influences the outcome. It influences whether or not the project will be funded. This is not the case. As I said, the origin of the proposal, the locality, is not evaluated. And there is even an effort from the side of the ERC to not allow any kind of bias that might have to do with such issues. The origin of the proposal, the gender of the applicant, etc. The ERC even holds workshops where panel members, evaluators, are trained to avoid any kind of bias, even unconscious bias. And the constitution of the panels is also such that offsets any such bias. So, for example, we are looking for a balanced panel with regard to male and female panelists. We are also looking for panel members who are coming from throughout Europe, so not just from specific countries. So diversity in the panel, in the constitution of the panel, is something that the ERC, the Scientific Council, is really monitoring very closely, and there are very strict rules about panel composition, exactly because of this, because we are looking to avoid any kind of bias that might have to do with the country of origin or the gender or any other non-scientific, let's say, criterion. Scientific excellence is the only criterion, and the ERC is really going out of its way to ensure that this is how the evaluation is proceeding. So this should not be a consideration that you should not apply from Greece because applying from Greece or from a Greek institution actually lowers your chances of success, because this is not the case. I cannot stress this enough, actually. Now, of course, as I said, still Greece is not doing well. Why aren't we doing well? It's not a matter of, and again, here I want to dismiss a misconception. It's not a matter of absolute numbers. Saying that 75 grants is low should actually take into consideration the size of the scientific community in Greece, which is much smaller than the scientific community of Germany, or of France, or of Switzerland. So we should not compare absolute numbers, because absolute numbers are actually not the safest criterion here. Success rate is an indicator, and there still we are not doing well. Now, why are we not doing well? It means that we don't have a level of competitiveness that is inclusive of a sizable chunk of our scientific community. That means that although there are excellent researchers in Greece, and this has been demonstrated because already we have success, multiple advanced grants, multiple consolidator grants, starting grants, etc. Still, the size of that part of our scientific community that can compete to this at this level is low compared, relatively speaking, compared to the size, to the relative size of other countries. Now, why is this? Of course, here we should look for the reason why we arrived here, why we have a lower number of highly competitive researchers. And this has to do, of course, with how we build our national community and how we nationally support research. countries who do well, such as Germany, Switzerland, Israel, actually invest a lot in supporting their scientific community at the national level. So you need to first build a competitive scientific community. And how do you do that nationally? You, of course, support research at a national level. Here, Greece, of course, can do better. And of course, this is not something that will happen overnight. We've seen that there is a steady increase in the investment, in the national investment in research and innovation. And I'm very happy to actually see that this is happening lately in the recent years, despite the crisis, despite the challenges that the country has been facing. There is a realization that Greece should be spending, actually spending is not the right word, investing more in research and innovation. And this is slowly, picking up, and we are seeing this in recent years. We are not there yet, by no means are we there yet, but still, I believe that this is a trend, and it remains to be seen, because we are talking about a transformative change, and whether or not this will have an impact on the success rate of the country for programs such as the ERC, we'll have to see in the coming years. It's not something that will happen overnight, as I said. But we need, in order to be more successful, in order to increase our success rate, we need to create environments where researchers can thrive here in Greece, at the national level. And we need to become an attractive destination for Greeks abroad to repatriate, come to Greece, and become active in the research scientific community of Greece here. We also should offer opportunities to any researcher that might want to come to Greece to do research. And already here in the panel, we had an example. We had examples of non-Greek nationals that actually came to Greece to do research. So this is something that we can do. We should be doing more of it. And I'm actually, by nature, I'm optimistic. So I would like to believe that there is room for improvement, that we can do better. And it encourages me that actually Greek researchers have already been successful, and we have demonstrated excellence in Greece. It's not something that we cannot do. There's no, in principle, we can do excellent research in Greece, which tells me that we can do more of it. And I think that is the purpose of having these sessions, having these workshops, and taking advantage of all the tools that are available, taking advantage of the national contact point to the best possible extent, so that we can become more successful. I would be very happy to see that we increase our participation in ERC programs, and through this increased participation, we actually get more successful proposals. And as I said in the beginning, and I will close with this, it's not just about the money, and you know that very well, those of you who have received the ERC grants already. Getting an ERC grant is really a tremendous boost in one's career. Not just because you can do your research having peace of mind for 5 years, and having substantial money, substantial funding. You can actually do more with an ERC grant in Greece than you can do with an ERC grant in Switzerland, for example. You can have a larger team in Greece. You can do more with the same amount of money in Greece than, for example, in Germany or in Switzerland or in other European countries. So this, I think, is also a factor. But regardless of that, an ERC is more of more than a grant. Is really an award of excellence because of the excellence criterion that is used during the evaluation. So it can really, as I said, provide a boost to the career of the successful applicants. And it also makes a strong point about the competitiveness of Greek researchers and Greek research institutions. The fact that we are able to obtain funding from the ERC is sending a strong message to the rest of the community, even to the Greeks of the diaspora, that we can actually do this in Greece. So in principle, it can be done. And indeed, it serves as a message of optimism that we can be more successful. It depends, of course, on whether or not we capitalize on all the tools that are available. And there is also the element of the national policies towards research, whether or not research is supported nationally in Greece. And here, I believe that again, there is a lot of room for improvement, and I'm looking forward to see how things unfold and develop for the future. That's it from me. Of course, if there are any, pressing, pending questions, I would be more than happy to engage and address those. But until next time, my wish is for successful, attempts, efforts, and please make use of the expertise and the experience that is out there. Maria, back to you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Tavenarakis. Always very precise and up to the point. You summarized perfectly well what we have heard today during this 2.5 hours event, adding even more useful tips, information and advice. So we are in the end of this online informative event about ERC. I would like to thank all the invited speakers for accepting our invitation to participate at the event and their very interesting speeches. You can find the recording of the event on Praxi Network's YouTube channel and the presentations at the praxinetwork.gr and horizoneurope.gr websites. As I mentioned in the beginning of this event, the main scope of the event was to decode ERC and inspire researchers to submit their proposals to a suitable ERC funding scheme. We hope that this info day had an actual impact for you and answered most of your questions. Please remember that we are here to help. Praxi Network is a nominated national contact point in Greece, offering support services to ERC applicants. Furthermore, as Mr. Tavenarakis mentioned, we are planning to participate at the ERC mentoring scheme introduced by the ERC Executive Agency earlier this year to further support Greek applicants. Me and my colleague Maria Samara are more than happy to assist you and support you for submitting successful ERC proposals. Thank you all. Have a nice day.